So for today's video, I want to put us in a scenario and sort of like try to understand the content or the concept of our question, right? And our question is that exactly how can a contract of service be terminated, right? So we are going to look into the steps that we would take in that scenario when we are trying to terminate a contract. So the scenario is as follows. You are a company, you represent a company, I represent a company, right? So you are contracting me to come and do a project for you, right? So let's say maybe you specialize in building houses, right? And I would sort of like contribute a small percentage into what you do in overall, right? So meaning that you would typically need me to come and maybe do the foundation, and then once that is done, we cancel our contract, right? We terminate our contract, right? So that is the scenario, right? And then, as I said, our question is that we have concluded our business. I have built your foundation. Now it is time to terminate our contract. When that is done, we do not just separate. You understand? There's a plethora of things that we need to take into consideration, right? So I'm basically going to be the one who's terminating the contract, right? So first, let's understand the basic concept of our main question today, right? So terminating a contract of service typically involves following a set of steps outlined in the contract agreement or adhering to applicable laws and regulations, right? While the exact process can vary depending on the specific terms and jurisdiction, I will sort of like provide a general overview of the whole process and how it unfolds, right? So the first thing that I would do, remember, I am now the one who's trying to terminate our contract, right? The first thing that I would do is to review the contract, right? Carefully examine the terms and conditions of the contract I would have with you as an organization, right? So I would look for any clauses or provisions related to termination, including grounds for termination, notice requirements, and any specific procedures outlined. So basically, this means that if maybe the contract that we signed has specific terms and conditions on how the contract is to be terminated, maybe if I need to inform you in 3 months and give you a 3-month notice, then those are the things that I would need to keep into considerations. You understand? Sort of like understand the steps or the procedures that I would need to follow when I actually terminate the contract. You understand? So now we need to identify the grounds for termination, right? Determine the valid reasons for terminating the contract. Common grounds for terminating include non-performance or breach of contract by the contractor, right? This is just something that is so common. You find that most of the time contracts are terminated for such reasons. And one thing that you must keep in mind is that there's like a large number of reasons why contracts are terminated. Maybe it is as they specified for performance reasons, failing to meet deadlines, breach of contract, sometimes even instances where maybe the organization is looking into bringing technology and replacing replacing certain tasks that are done by humans or completed by humans, and replacing that with machines. You understand? Then the organization would reach a conclusion where it does not need this number of employees. Now we have technology that is able to perform such tasks. Typical example, a car factory, right? Back then they didn't have the technology that is existing today. You understand? So you would find that in a car manufacturer or in a car factory, you would find that there were like a large number of employees, right? However, as time progressed, technology developed, Now, car manufacturers were able to bring these technologies and sort of like replace manpower with technology. You understand? Now they have machineries which build cars. You don't necessarily need a large number of people building the car when you have technology doing that for you, right? So as long as we understand those the vast reasons that we have for terminating a contract, we can easily understand what this point entails. You understand? So we have to find those reasons as to why we would be now terminating our contract. Say maybe I have completed my part of the job, right? Now when I do that, I do not just get up and go. You understand? I guess what I'm trying to say is that a lot of people would look at it in a sense that I do not want to leave a bad taste. You understand? So rather leave knowing that I did my job and we are living on good in good terms. You understand? Tomorrow it's much easier for us to do business again. You understand? So we have to identify the grounds at which we are terminating our contract, right? And then we need to document performance issues. It's very crucial to maintain a record of any performance issues, breaches, or incidents that justify the termination. Gather evidence such as correspondence reports, photographs, or any relevant documentation that supports your case for termination. This is only if maybe the main reason or the grounds for terminating the contract was maybe a breach of contract, or we failed to meet deadline, things like that. However, if we terminate the contract in terms that maybe the company is bringing in a new contractor to sort of like continue the work, then such things you wouldn't necessarily take them into consideration, because they are exclusively for instances where maybe there were performance issues, as I mentioned. You understand? So the next step is there needs to be communication with parties involved. You understand? So initiate contact with the contractor to discuss the issues at hand. Provide a written notice specifying the grounds for termination and any remedial actions required by the contractor to avoid termination. Again, this would be in the case of maybe there were performance issues. You understand? However, in a case where maybe, think of a case where you are an employee and you're trying to resign at work, right? Normally what you would do is you would submit a resignation letter, and on your resignation letter, maybe you would choose to stipulate that you are choosing to resign simply for greener pastures or opportunities elsewhere. You understand? So that is sort of like what this point entails. There needs to be sort of like a notice being put out to the other party to say that, listen up, we are reaching a point where we have decided to terminate our contract. You understand? So sort of like let them know. You don't want this whole thing to be a surprise. You understand? So yeah, and then another thing is there needs to be legal considerations. Remember this is very, very important. A contract is a legally binding document. You do not just up and go, as I have been saying. There needs to be a lot of things that you need to take into consideration, especially when it comes to the legal side of things. You understand? Another typical example that I will basically give you to sort of like sum this point up is, if you are trying to resign from work and you decide you are not going to put in a notice, or you are not going to notify your employer that you are resigning, you just disappear. In HR, there's a term for that, and it is called abscondment, right? It is called abscondment. So that is sort of like a legal issue, because think of a situation where maybe you failed to meet a deadline, and then now according to the contract that you signed, you agreed that if you fail to meet the deadline, you are supposed to maybe pay for 50% of the project. Just an example. You understand? You have to cover 50% of the project financially. That was the agreement. If you just up and go and you do not communicate, that sort of like breaches the terms that you had in place, to say that if you fail to meet the project, or you fail to complete the project on time, you will be paying X amount, or you will be covering the project in so and so. Understand? So if you just disappear, that breaks, or that breaches that term. You understand? So you want to try to avoid such things. So you need to take consideration of all the legal aspects of the contract, because this is very important. This is very, very important. And then next up, there needs to be a follow notice requirements. If your contractor specifies a notice period, adhere to it by providing written notice to the contractor within the required time frame. Ensure the notice includes the date, reasons for termination, and any relevant supporting documentation. You understand? So going back to what I mentioned earlier on, when you submit your resignation letter, it needs to stipulate that I will be able to serve up to 30 days or 15 days or whatsoever. You understand? And you need to live up to that. Whatever you are communicating when you inform the other party that the contract is now being terminated, you need to live up to those terms. You understand? Until that day, the contract is still in effect. You understand? Just because you are serving a notice does not mean now that the contract is null and void. No, the contract will be in effect until the very last day. If in your resignation letter you are saying that on the 20th of August I am resigning, you will be expected to deliver, or you'll be expected to meet each and every term that you agreed on that contract until the 20th of August. You understand? So that's another thing that you would have to keep in mind, right? And then another thing is mitigate damages. Again, this is sort of like now looking in the aspect of if maybe things didn't go smooth along the agreement, right? So you would want to mitigate any damages. Take steps to mitigate any potential damages or loss resulting from the termination. This might involve finding an alternative service provider or taking immediate measures to minimize disruptions to ongoing projects or services. Back to the example I made, they also made the very same example on this point, to say that if maybe the termination is because there's another company coming in, whether I did not complete on time or I didn't do an excellent job, then you need to outsource a different contractor to come and do the job properly. You understand? So you would need to mitigate any factors, sort of like putting processes in place that are going to mitigate any damages that have occurred, right? Then there needs to be the formal termination. If the contractor fails to rectify the issues within the specified period, or if the contractor allows for immediate termination, issues or formal termination letter, this letter should reiterate the reasons for termination and specify the effective date of termination. Again, this is another point that looks into scenarios where things didn't really go smooth, right? Post-termination steps. Following termination ensures that all parties are informed of the decision. Coordinate the transition of any ongoing responsibilities, such as transferring relevant documents, assets, or tasks to a new contractor or in-house team as necessary, right? Basically, when the termination ends, it doesn't simply conclude that whatever the main objective also ends there. Maybe if there's a new employee who's coming in to take a spot of an old employee, then there sort of needs to be like a transition between the employee who's leaving the organization and the employee who's coming into the organization, maybe transferring of responsibilities. You understand? So such things need to happen. If maybe I need to submit certain documents to you as an organization as I'm terminating our contract, that needs to happen. You understand? Remember, the main goal is to ensure that there's no breaching whatever terms that we had in place. We don't breach the agreements that we had in place. If I said that I will be working for you until 10 p.m., then I need to make sure that I work for you up until 10 p.m. until the very last day. You understand? Because that is what we agreed on. That is that, Buffet. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you do stay tuned. Check out the other videos on our channel. If you're watching this and you still haven't subscribed, come on now. Get with the program. Bafethu, I'm gonna keep on saying this until you understand. Subscribe. Click on that subscribe button, click on that bell icon so that you get instant notifications for every time we drop new content. All the links to our socials are right up here, so do make sure that you check those out, because it is where you guys can communicate with us. If you want me to cover a specific topic or any of our tutors, make sure you communicate with us, let us know, and we will make it happen for you guys, right? Otherwise, Bafethu, anything other than that, as I always say, for myself and my team at TVET Tutorials, adios.